Mic check 1 2 1 2. Mic check 1 2 1 2. Mic check 1 2 1 2. Okay. Hello, 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 hello. Mic check 1 2 1 2. Mic check 1 2 1 2. Mic check 1 2 1 2. Mic check 1 2. Mic check 1 2 1 2. Mic check 1 2 1 2. Mic check 1 2 1 2. Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of the Call Me Other podcast. Guess what today is? Is the Lunar New Year. So happy Lunar New Year. Yesterday was Lunar New Year's Eve, which was January 31st. I bet y'all don't know what happens on that day. They eat a bunch of food. It's an Asian custom, particularly celebrated amongst Chinese culture. So they feast, they give money, and they bring in the new year. So I don't want to hear anybody saying anything about me saying it's a new year, because indeed it is. But I hope you guys have had a blessed start to your year. It is 2022. I remember when it was 2020. That's really the last year I remember. Everything else has been a pandemic blur in between. COVID fog is just not for those with COVID. It's also for us who are going through this pandemic. But we made it, y'all. It is another start. It's also the start of Lovers Countdown. So you have 13 days to get your lover and find you a date for Valentine's Day. And also, it's the start of Black History Month. So it's a lot. February 1st is a good day. It's a good day to be alive. And let's talk about what February 1st represents, right? As far as Black History Month, I'm into that, in the celebration of that. So I want to definitely honor and talk about Coretta Scott King. We talk a lot about Dr. Martin Luther King. We celebrate his birthday. We celebrate so much about his life and legacy because he gave so much to America for the good of all people, and he fought so much along with civil rights leaders, and he was just such icon and legend, and really just the optimum of what we all believed. I think when we think of Dr. King, we think of nothing but great things, but it always wasn't that way. And one of the people that definitely dealt with the brunt of that was Coretta Scott King. She was a phenomenal woman indeed. When he tragically passed in his 30s, very young age, Coretta Scott King picked up that torch. She spoke all over the country. She kind of had to deal with going away from her obligation as a mother and really pick up the torch for Dr. King, who unfortunately was killed. And she definitely made it her duty that we honored his legacy, his life, his time here. And she did a wonderful job of celebrating him. And they raised 4 amazing children. Even though he wasn't here, she definitely made sure she did her due diligence with that. But also when we think about Dr. King, as well as Coretta Scott King, we don't think about the radicalness of their nature. Nonviolence was something that was a lifestyle to them, and they lived that to the fullest. So I pay so much homage to her for everything she did, and she sacrificed her life up until the day she passed away. She gave so much of her life to us to ensure that not only was Dr. King celebrated, but to ensure that Black people received their just due, and that we got a good start. What they did and what they've allowed for us to move forward is so huge. So never want to forget them. So like I said, a lot happening on February 1st, but we want to make sure we highlight our icons that are part of Black history, as well as those who are still making modern day history. But yes, so Coretta Scott King, she is missed, she is loved, and she was a true trailblazer indeed. I encourage everyone to go check out her story and just how she was as a woman and how she was as a leader, because she was that indeed. She had to step up to the plate when Dr. King was killed, and she did a phenomenal job championing his mission, championing all of his causes, but also being someone who was the ultimate counsel for him. I think the reason why he was able to stay so strong in his beliefs is because he was able to see that at home, that his wife was 100% believed in him, and she also contributed a great deal. So we definitely want to give our flowers to her. But how has everyone been? I hope everyone is off to a good day, but keep those things in mind when you're thinking about February. It's a month of love, but it's also an important month of history. I have been not consistent, and I know that's what everybody's thinking. And you're right. Last year, I did 5 podcasts. That is terrible. It's in my bio of my Instagram. So when people follow me on my personal Instagram, they're always like, "Do you have a podcast?" And I'm like, "Yes." Kinda. Because I do not upload, and that is so pathetic, and I need to do better with that. So this year, I'm not even gonna say it. I'm gonna try to upload. February is like I'm gonna try to push them out as many as possible because there's so much for us to talk about. There's so much going on. So yeah, we got plenty to talk about. So no worries. We're gonna do that in the month of February. So that's what we're going to dedicate ourselves to and dealing with life. But let's talk about some trending topics right now before I get into what my main subject line is. Let's see here. Right. So hold on. Okay. So there has been quite a few things trending. One of those things that have been trending is Joe Rogan. Now, if you don't know, Joe Rogan is a podcaster, and he basically has been inviting some controversial guests that I will not name on my podcast to his show, to do his show, to talk about things that kind of go away from what the CDC or other people in government have been recommending for people as far as health goes. And it's been upsetting some people because some of the information is truly just misinformation. But also it can be very dangerous because Joe Rogan has, I think, one of the biggest followings ever. I never listened to him. That's not my judge. But of course, I'm not going to say I've never listened to him. I've heard a few of his interviews and different things like that. But I do think that he lives on the side of controversy. And I think that Neil Young, who, of course, iconic artist, he basically said, listen, it's me and him Spotify. And Spotify chose Joe Rogan, who they've given a multi-million-dollar deal to. I don't think it was a bad choice. I just think that I wish that Spotify would have fought harder to see what they can do, because I do think that we're at such a divisive point in America right now with this COVID-19 pandemic, how to handle it. Should people get vaccinated? So much that's surrounding it. And especially as we change administrations, because, the vaccine was something that was founded under the Trump administration, and it's just the Biden's administration's duty to carry it out. I believe that's how it's supposed to go, but I do know that it was something that was discovered under the Trump administration. So I think that it upsets a lot of people. It is controversial content, but Joe Rogan, unfortunately or fortunately, does have freedom of speech in this instance, regardless of the information that he is spreading. You can take it how you want to. Is it something that we should be encouraging? That's not at odds for anyone to say, but I know that a lot of people are looking into it. But I will say that when you are a media personality, you do have responsibility. You have to be accountable. And I think that hopefully in due time, maybe Joe Rogan can review that and maybe think about, well, how can I go about this? And he did release a statement saying he's sorry he's causing so much anguish to Spotify because they've lost like $1 billion in advertisement because of this. Or maybe it was $1 million. But either way, they've lost a lot of money in advertisement because of this, because people are sketchy about, issues like that. It's very controversial, but the reality is that there are millions that have passed away all across the world from this virus, and it's a deadly virus and can be deadly for people that maybe don't take the right precautions, right? So I think that that's what people are concerned about. And you got to think, people have lost cousins, sisters, brothers, dads, aunts, uncles, grandparents to this. So it's, of course, going to be a touchy subject for so many out there. And that's why I say with Joe Rogan, like, it's up to him to, at his discretion, to feel as though, how comfortable am I with this? How much responsibility do I want to take on my podcast? Or am I just wanting to spew? I think it's up to all of us to kind of look inward. I think that's why so much controversy attached to the vaccine. But I do encourage people to, just be mindful, to be someone, a media personality, to be a podcaster, to be a journalist. Those are all public figure roles. At the end of the day, no, we don't make the news, but it's our job to present the news and to present it in a manner that's non-biased and that's a way that everybody can receive. And sometimes it's up to us also to realize that, is this irresponsible? How much of both sides am I telling of the story, which is what Joe Rogan said in his statement, how he can do a better job of highlighting and talking about COVID-19 vaccine. I can't believe how many people still want to hear about the pandemic, but apparently all of Joe Rogan's Spotify listeners, which is millions and millions of people, all they want to talk about is the pandemic. So, again, it's up to his discretion. But sadly, freedom of speech kind of protects people from a lot of things except for hate speech, which is never, ever, 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 ever okay. So, what can you do? My heart, again, people have a right to change their mind, and hopefully one day Joe Rogan will be like, maybe this isn't something that I want to go so hard on. But at the end of the day, it's to his discretion. It's up to him. But today, guys, I wanted to talk about Lauren Smith Fields. Lauren Smith Fields, which actually we were talking about at my job today, her story began on January 13th. She was a young, beautiful woman who decided, and I'm pulling up the nuts and potatoes of it. I got from a Connecticut station, NBC in Connecticut, where I feel like they had the best details about the story. But she's 23 years old, or was 23 years old. She died on January 13th. She was found dead in her apartment. Now check this out. Her family was never notified by authorities. The police or her landlord left a note on her door for her family. Her brother came visit her, and they left a note on her door. And guess what the note said? Can you give us a call when you get a chance? Lauren's family, can you give us a call when you get a chance? So the brother called, and the landlord said, yeah, your sister's dead. They've already taken her body, because her apartment was cleared out when they went inside of it. So very, very, very skeptical situation there. And from then, I don't think people know how much of a red flag that is for police to not contact the victim's family and say, hey, we got this body. This is your sister, brother, daughter. Can you come down to the station? Like, that's just not good practice at all. So that was when the story began. Lauren's story was is such a big deal because she's this beautiful black girl. She's in Bridgeport, Connecticut. She has a pretty good following on social media. Not like a Gabby Petito size following, but some people knew her in the area. So as the story progressed, her family called authorities, and authorities basically said the police department, the Bridgeport Police Department, because that's who, and they said they don't have any details on it. They don't know what happened. And no autopsy was ever ran. Now, she went on a date that day that she was found dead with a man named Matthew LaFountain. He was 37 years old. He was a 37-year-old white male. And that was the last person she was last seen with. Now, the mother said, they went on to say how heartbroken they were. They, just completely crying out, asking for anybody that had help. She was also, let's highlight, Lauren was a student at Norwalk Community College. She had her own business. Her family said she was full of laughs, great things about Lauren. She seemed like a great person, but her life ended in such a nightmare manner. And, when they found that note, it was just so gut-wrenching. Like, if you're looking for Lauren, call this number. The number belonged, of course, to the landlord. Like, just a horrific information. But, the family did call the police later that day, and the detective of the case, and they did not get confirmation of Lauren's death until they reached out to the Bridgeport Police Department. So when they contacted the detective about the case or the situation, they still never confirmed the information. So the authorities from the beginning were just very sketchy. And they went on to release a statement last month. I'm sorry, she was found deceased on December 12th. I stand corrected, December 12th. And basically, this is the note that they released to NBC in Connecticut. They said on December 12, 2021, the Bridgeport Emergency Operations Center received a call for service regarding an untimely death. Upon police arrival, it was found that Miss Lauren Smith Fields passed away unexpectedly. The incident is currently being investigated by the Bridgeport Police Department's Detective Bureau. The investigation remains open and active. The Bureau is awaiting a final report from the Chief Medical Examiner's Office for cause and manner of death of Miss Smith Fields. The Bridgeport Police Department offers its sincerest condolences to the family and friends of Miss Lauren Smith Fields. We encourage anyone with information regarding this incident to contact the Detective Sergeant Joseph Morales at blank, 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 or I'll give the number out. To contact the Detective Sergeant Joseph Morales, because this is a public publication, so that number is 203-581-5219, or the Bridgeport Police Department tips line, which is 203-576-8477. Maybe someone who listens to this podcast by chance knows something. The family said once they reached out to the detective, he did confirm that she had passed away and she had met up with, again, his name was Matthew LaFountain, who was 37 years old. And once her family found out about the man, they asked the detectives about him, and the family said the detective's response was shocking. Guess what he said? When they asked the officer about the guy, they said he seemed like a very nice guy, and they weren't looking into him anymore. It was almost like he was sticking up for him, and it seemed weird to hear from a detective. That's what a family member said. They said they felt that he was sticking up for they felt like officers were sticking up for Matthew LaFountain, who was 37 years old. After the family continued to ask questions about the investigation, that's when they say they began to running into a lot of issues. They began to stop answering their calls. They would hang up in their faces. They would tell the family, they would make, they just treated them bad, and they would ask them questions like, why are you still calling? Or, just basically minimizing her death and not trying to give her any answers. And when they would get to ask them, like, okay, what's her cause of death? What's her cause of death? This autopsy, mind you, she passed away in December, and we didn't even find out about what the autopsy results were until like last week. Like, the family didn't get any type of information. So the family took it amongst themselves to do their own independent autopsy, and they're still awaiting those results. When you do an independent autopsy, it takes a little bit longer because it's not saying that the autopsy the police departments run isn't as in detailed, but definitely sometimes the family may talk to the person and they may be looking for certain cues and different things. So that's why sometimes the independent autopsy could just take longer. Now, the family, they grew up angry over these last few weeks with them, and it just became a situation. They haven't been seeing anything. Of course, they compared their case to Gabby Petito, and they said, how they felt like the police department was being, quote, racially insensitive because here it is, this beautiful black woman, and they're completely minimizing her death, and they're not saying anything. And they called for an independent investigation for several weeks. Nothing happened, and they want the DOJ to look into the case. They actually hired their own attorney to deal with the police department, and they released this. The family her family, Lawrence Smithfield's family, they released a statement. And they said, we see them now offering their condolences after reporters have been asking them for questions, and we hear about it. It's like a slap in the face. We don't want excuses. We want answers. They went on to say, they have no faith in the Bridgeport Police Department, and they have been disrespected, and they didn't handle their loved one's case like they should have as soon as this had happened. Mind you, this is a report that I'm reading to you guys, came out probably 2 weeks ago, so still, there's no type of autopsy. There's no results, no reason for her death. And so her family continued to call for justice, and this story continued to blow up. A lot of social media stars, Jasmine Sanders is one I can think of, but a lot of social media stars that are mostly women of color called for investigation into this because they try to use their platform to raise awareness. Cardi B got involved. TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, it was just the talk of the town about Lauren's death and still is. And it's because of social media that a proper investigation was done. But, again, that's just my personal thing. But, a proper investigation has finally begun. And this week, the case has really been taking a turn because we found out some chilling details. First of all, also, I forgot to include that the family also wrote an extremely long letter to the mayor. So something that I feel like that people don't want to, that I found out that was a chilling detail was not only was Lauren Smith Fields found on this day, but Brenda Lee Rawls was found on this day. She was a 53-year-old woman that was found dead the same day as Lauren Smith Fields. Now, the reason in the Bridgeport community, so 2 Bridgeport, Connecticut women were both found. They're both black women. And here's the thing. Both of their deaths were caused by the same reason. Their deaths were both caused by, check this out, fentanyl, promethazine, and alcohol combined effects of intoxication. That's what they said. That were the reasons for both of these women's deaths. Also, neither one of their families were notified that they had died, and the city police had taken no action against either one of their deaths. And Rawls, the the investigation that's done by the city is still pending. But two black women were found. And like I said, Smithfield's, her death was caused by basically what they're calling a drug overdose. And as of this week, they have now announced that a criminal investigation into her death is happening and is being assisted by the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration. At this time, they said they're still under investigation. They're looking into it. But in the meantime, two Connecticut detectives were placed on administrative leave following public outcry over the handlings of Lauren Smithfield's and Brenda Lee Rawls' handling of their deaths. Now, the city mayor announced that the two were being placed on. He also extended condolences to their family. The mayor's name is Joseph Ganim, and he said that he is, sorry. He extended his condolences and said he was extremely disappointed with the leadership of the Bridgeport Police Department and find actions taken up to this point unacceptable. So you have two women dead. Nobody seems to know anything. Limited investigation. It just looks very fickle and it looks very untrustworthy. And it raises cause for concern, I feel as though, because the way they went about it. First of all, I cannot imagine if I don't have a sister, but my brother, something happened to him, and I go to his place of living or his apartment, house, whatever he lives in, and there is a note on the door that says, if you're looking for my brother, whose name, if you're looking for my brother, please call me at this number. And then I call you at that number, and you tell me that my brother is dead. And never notified by authorities, no type of crime tape is up, nothing like that. Body gone, everything's gone, and then I call the authorities and they refuse to confirm it. A bunch of things were mishandled in this situation. It's utterly sad, and it continues to showcase the distrust that so many people have, particularly people of color, particularly black people have with this system. And given you can't blame one case, you can't put one case on the forefront, but if you look at so many different instances that have happened, down to the unfortunate death and murder of Ahmaud Arbery, I mean, you see these type of things and you depend on the justice system to carry them out and make sure that everyone's held accountable, and they instead said, no, they look nice. Or in the poor passing of young Ahmaud Arbery, in his case, it was like, no, the McMichaels didn't do anything wrong. 3 men with guns and this unarmed black man, he was the danger. It's just like, the mistrust is there, and you hate to make it a racial issue, but when you see these things happening to people of color, you can't help but address the elephant in the room, which is these are two black women dead, and there's been no investigation into their death until public scrutiny. And I mean, you're talking about Cardi B, the biggest star, some of the biggest Instagram influencers having to call for this. It took like such aligning of the stars for this to become a national story. And, her having her social media following and all of this gut-wrenching details. And there have been so many YouTube videos made about her death. The Shade Room is covering. All of the biggest media urban outlets are covering it. And this is what it takes for a proper investigation. It just simply looks sketchy right now. And again, Matthew LaFountain, who is 37 years old, who is a white male who took her on a date in Bridgeport, Connecticut, wherever he is, and they're not calling him a suspect because he's just such a nice man that it's no way. His facial look is just no way. And now you have the detectives suspended, and it's just like we saw how like the Gabby Petito situation, how, they never really took it seriously when people said, no, she was last seen with this man, put two and two together. But the violence against women, it has to be taken seriously. And it's so sad because I bet all of those detectives are men. And it's just like when things like this happen, it just leaves space for a great conversation to talk about how can we go about handling things better. And it's just like it never gets handled better. Instead, you end up with more situations like this. As a woman who is an independent liver herself, it's just like it makes you wonder, like, if it was not for family, who would fight for us or how important it is. I don't know the Bridgeport, Connecticut community that well, but I will say it's just heartbreaking to think that this is how they handle situations. How are people in the community supposed to feel safe if this is how you're handling a death? You received a call because what happened was Matthew LaFountain called, and he said that there was a nosebleed that there was a nosebleed, and then somehow when they came, they found her dead. Now that is an alleged report. Again, authorities have now, since it's a criminal investigation, they're not wanting to speculate on details, but that's allegedly what happened. And that's how they were even able to tell the family about the Bumble date, because he made the call. At the time, it was a nosebleed. From a nosebleed, somehow we end up with a dead woman, and they see no red flags. It's just heartbreaking. It's gut wrenching. It makes you wonder, like, is anybody in that police department that have the last name LaFountain? Do they know him? Why would they fight so hard to protect him when the poor girl who's 23-year-old was found dead? And not to mention Miss Rawls, who's 53, whose death they're still investigating, who they never notified her family at all. It's just shocking, and things like this need to be brought to national attention, because this cannot happen. You have 2 black women in this community who died / still under investigation. We don't know if they were killed or what, and then their families aren't even properly notified. In fact, notes are left on doors by landlords. I mean, it's just not okay. And now they have police departments that are refusing to answer questions until they're faced with national media attention. What are the chances that Cardi B can cover every person of color, every indigenous woman, every black woman, every Hispanic woman that crime is committed against? It's just no way she has time for that. There's no way these social media influencers have it. It's up to the people who are elected in office, the people that are hired, who take these oaths to protect the communities. So again, we're going to continue to follow this Lawrence Smith Fields, but as of right now, 2 detectives have been fired. It's an ongoing investigation. Matthew LaFountain, who's 37 years old and is a white male who was last seen in the Bridgeport, Connecticut area, is still out there somewhere. And as of right now, he's not a suspect. He was the last person that was seen with her. And it's just heartbreaking because, I can only feel she had the whole world in front of her. She was in college. She had a business. And I know she had so much going for her. And I know her family wants answers. And they've had to hire an attorney. And they're just going through so much just to make sure that their daughter, their loved one, receives their just due justice, which everyone in America should be guaranteed to. It's just so heartbreaking. And it's just disgusting, 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 disgusting to see. Because you don't want to at all perpetuate these type of things or these type of ideas in these conversations that are constantly had about the violence that is committed against certain communities and the work that officers are not doing. Because there are officers out there who are doing their job and do make people feel safe and do so much for the community. But when you see travesties like this, complete injustice done, it just breaks your heart. So Lawrence Smith Fields, the story is heartbreaking. I encourage everyone to go look into it. Honestly, I feel like social media had the better details than the police at this point, because they've been able to put 2 and 2 together. And they're the reason why I even know about this story, because social media has been blowing it up. I remember I saw her face a month ago in January, and unbeknownst to me, the story, she had passed away on December 12th. But again, it's just sad that that's what we have to rely on for stories like this, because it's reported that a woman died, but no details are released. Media outlets can get sued for putting information that's alleged out, which no clear, concise details. And then you go to the police department and they're saying, well, now, and it's just like, this happened December 12th, and we are now entering February 1st, and it's just now becoming a criminal investigation. Like, what are you going to go look at now at this point? Her apartment was clean, so what are we doing? It's just very sad. It's very heartbreaking, and I hope that her family is able to find peace, but also get answers. So we're going to continue to follow the Lawrence Smith Fields story. I encourage everyone to look into it. It's something that I hope that, working with different entities, that they're able to get right and get their family answers, because they definitely deserve that. But also something that I thought I would never, ever be talking about again is the McMichaels. So the McMichaels are a father and a son duo who murdered Ahmaud Arbery, along with another man who filmed it. All 3 of the men have been convicted for murder, and they are supposed to be in state jail doing their time. But they also are facing federal hate crimes, and they are receiving a potential plea deal. They've reached a plea deal with the DOJ. Ahmaud Arbery's mother was heartbroken, so was his father, heartbroken by this. And it's unfortunate. And the judge had to step in and said no. The plea deal that was reached was that they would do 30 years in federal penitentiary and then they would go back to the state jail. And the reason why this was a big deal because clearances and things that you receive in federal penitentiary are just different than things you received in state jail, and it would also give them a potential to one day be released and on probation, essentially. So Ahmaud Arbery completely heartbroken by this. She spoke out. She pleaded to the judge, like, please don't allow this to happen. The fact that even though it's not guaranteed, these men could potentially see the light of day given this plea deal is just unacceptable. So the judge rejected their plea deal. So now they're going back to the drawing board and seeing if they want to plead guilty at all. I don't know how that works, how you can plead guilty and then change your plea to not guilty, but it is something that is allowed in our court systems. Yeah, no words for that. My heart goes out to Ahmaud Arbery's family, who's continuing to be traumatized. His mother said if they were to go with the plea deal and the time that he would get now, it would be give the McMichaels one last time to spit in her face. And I could not agree more. Sometimes I see these stories, and as a journalist, it just feels surreal that you see these type of things happening because it's just like they did such a heinous crime and they were allowed to walk away so many times because the prosecutors, quote, knew them in the community, so it allowed for them to get away with so much. And then unfortunately, fortunately, justice was carried out, but they were out for so long, and it was just like they were parading around videos, photos, like, look, we killed this man, this innocent man, and for what? Because of hate. It's so sad and so heartbreaking, and I hope that that judge stands strong with that. I don't know what's going to happen if they rescind their plea deal, and like I said, as of right now, she hasn't accepted the plea deal. She's rejected it due to the time that they would get off from it. But it'll be interesting to see if they change their plea now. I mean, do they really? I don't know. I just think that it's unfair, and it needs to be ensured that they are serving a life sentence regardless. They should never ever be outside of a jail because they've shown that they're very dangerous and they're careless and they are not sorry for what they did. They have yet to release an apology, yet to show any type of empathy or any type of compassion for the Arbery family, and for that, I think that they're not willing to change, and they're still not willing to admit their action. They're still never issued. We never knew what the plea deal all entailed them. I think it included them pleading guilty to 5 charges. I don't even know why the DOJ came to them with that. That's very disappointing. I looked for the name of the prosecutor for the hate crimes on the federal level to see what their name is so I can put them out there, because I think that it's very dangerous that a prosecutor who's supposed to have the best interest of the Arbery family but also the public would ensue or create a deal like this. Very, very disappointing. I would love to talk to a lawyer about why this plan was created, because what the McMichaels did was such disgusting, such a disgusting thing, and the fact that they're not getting away with it, I will never say that, but the fact that they're receiving a lessened sentence potentially if they had went with the plea deal, the fact that an attorney would agree to that is just heartbreaking, and it's not a carriage of justice. So we'll see what happens, but as it stands right now, they have life sentences that they are supposed to serve in the state jail. So we'll see what the federal case is, what comes of that. But before we go, I definitely wanted to reflect on the life of Cheslie Kryst. She was Miss USA 2019, beautiful girl, big hair. She was her, Miss Teen USA, and Miss America were all black in 2019 year. It was something to see, right? It was so incredible, but unfortunately, she passed away. She unalived herself from a building, from her building, and it was heartbreaking. And that's why I want to end by saying this: be kind. I'm telling you guys about Lauren Smith Fields, and I'm telling you guys about Ahmaud Arbery, because all it took was kindness for them to still be alive today. And I don't know what was said to Cheslie. I don't know what she was fighting. I don't know her. But be kind. Time is something that's not guaranteed to anyone. It is the number one compensation, I feel like, of life. Nothing's worth more than time because you can't get it back. You can't get more of it. It's nothing that could change time. And you want to maximize your time on this earth by doing what is right, having a life that is good, and it's just something that's not guaranteed. So don't let your life be wasted doing something hateful or heinous or anything like that, because time is so precious and it's just not guaranteed. And I wish I can get more time on this earth, but unfortunately I just don't get more time. We have what we have. It's the most important type of currency we have. It's something that can never be replaced. So take advantage of your time and live a life that's purposeful, live a life that's kind, live a life that influences others, live a life that is great, because one day we all of our lives end. And I would like to think all of us, even though we can't all be Beyonce or Taylor Swift, but all of our lives make a difference, and it's important how we treat each other. And it's important that we take advantage of time, because you don't get time back, and that's just simple facts of life. So spend this year making it purposeful. Do great things. Stay prayerful. Work on your health. Work on all these great things that can make your life better. Because again, time is not on our side. It's not something that we're not guaranteed. We have very little time on this earth, and it's up to us to make the most out of it. So don't be like some of these men that I covered today. Don't be a part of that. Be something great. I think we can all make a difference on this earth and be kind and be better to one another. So I just want to encourage everyone out there, and I hope you guys have a great start to your year. I hope everyone, and if you choose when you reset your year. So whenever you're ready for that reset of your year to start and just walking into a light where you're ready to press the reset, that's up to you. But just remember to be kind to each other. Remember, time is not of the essence, so you want to make the most of your time. Do what you want. Love who you want. You don't get time. And the time that you do have, don't take it for granted. I know everybody wants to be 25 forever. It's not going to happen. Everybody wants to be 21 forever. You can't be that time. As you grow older, appreciate the time of life, because the experiences that we have is all we get. We don't get time back. We'll never be those ages again. But the time that we have is so beautiful, because God is giving us more chances to live our life and make the most of our time. So as we grow older, appreciate growing older, and know that everything happens for a reason, and know that time is valuable. So you want to do what you can and make the most out of what you love. If you're alive, make the most out of the day. Live with purpose. Do what you want, and listen to your heart. You never go wrong following your heart, guys. So we're going to keep this train rolling. Hope this was a great return episode. I love you. I care for you. You're important. You're enough. You're great. I have gratitude for your existence today. Speaking it all over you. Positive affirmations only, guys. Peace and love.